Hello. So I decided to make a video to a response of a question that a friend of mine asked. A very big question. Uh, and basically the question is, how do we find joy in being? And I believe the question arose from a post I had shared from Deepak Chopra, which says, "Be happy for no reason, like a child. If you are happy for a reason, you're in trouble, because that reason can be taken from you." And he had initially asked, well, how can you be happy for no reason? And that's where they all sort of tie in together. So when I posted this too, I was also interpreting the word happy more as the word joy. So be joyful for no reason means to find joy in being versus in doing. Because if you find peace or you find joy or happiness, a positive experience, if you find it and it's the foundation of it is in what you are doing, then at some point you're going to stop doing that activity. And once you do, that positive experience is going to drop. It's kind of like it's in the game of the duality, right? If you rise, you fall. If it's hot, eventually it cools off. So it's a duality sort of game, and it's like drinking coffee, right? If you drink coffee, inevitably you're gonna crash. You get out a bunch of energy, and it's all yay, and then eventually you crash. And that is, and actually, if happiness or that rise in the state of your being, of positive experience, if it has the ability to fall back down, then it is not true joy or happiness. It's actually egoic happiness, because anytime your happiness goes up and then drops back down, that's a sign that your happiness was attached to the ego. Because true deep joy or happiness, or whatever word you would like to use for bliss, whatever word you want to use for that elevated experience, that deep level, it doesn't have the drop. It stays here. Now, at the same time, you will notice some fluctuations, but the fluctuations are small, and that's just when your ego comes back in, you might drop a little. But it's not huge. It's not from super happy, super blissed out to super depressed and anxious or fearful or whatever. That is a sign that the ego is involved. And so if you're looking to find a deep experience of joy or peace of mind, then one, this is a good place to start really paying deep, close attention to ego. Start to study ego. What is the word ego? What does it mean? What does it mean to you personally, inside? Where is ego within yourself? And if Eckhart Tolle has been the most significant teacher for me in understanding this, understanding ego, and how to dissolve it. So definitely recommend reading his books, especially The Power of Now first, or second. The second one is A New Earth. Definitely a good place to start as far as starting to dissolve the ego, which consequently raises your experience of joy and bliss. But then getting to another point, joy of being. How do you find joy in simply being? That means, what does it mean to be? Being is literally when your attention, when your awareness is in this moment right here. You're being. You are. And technically you're always being. But most of the time, humans in our day and age, while our bodies are in the moment, our minds are not. Our minds are usually way off into the future or in the past, and bouncing back and forth very rapidly, and just thinking, thousands and thousands of thoughts a day. And so when our attention, when our awareness is in this mind, right, in our head, then we're not being here with our bodies and with the present moment. And when we are all up here in our thoughts, in our imagination, in the mind, we suffer a lot. With depression, anxiety, fear, all that negative human experience is because of this, because of the mind. So when you bring your attention to this moment, into your body, into whatever is surrounding you right now, for me it's my bedroom, for you it's wherever you're sitting right now, this is present moment. This is where you find the joy of being. And the joy of being is not attached at all to what you are doing. It's simply the fact of existing. When you find joy in the simplicity of just existing, of being alive and here, then you start to experience very deep, very profound feelings of joy. Levels of joy that don't have the drop like caffeine does, right? It doesn't have the drop. Once you find the joy of being, then the beauty of the joy of being is that once you find it, technically you're always being, so it's always available. And it's not dependent on where you are or what you're doing in order to feel this joy of being. So basically, once you really start to become comfortable in finding it, it's like an unlimited resource. No matter where you go, you are there. No matter where you go, you can be, and you can be in joy. And it has nothing to do with what you're doing in the external world. Only with where your attention, where your awareness is, and that would be in the present moment in life. So, with this, and maybe you kind of hear it, but at the same time you kind of don't understand it completely. Because truly, you can't truly understand it until you're experiencing it. What does it feel like to find joy in simply existing? But another aspect that I find curious when I talk to people that understand and experience it pretty regularly, there is a few common denominators. One of which is suffering. For me, and for some of my friends that deeply understand the joy of being, we've all been through tremendous suffering at some point in our life that was so heavy that it forced us to just surrender. I definitely can speak for myself in that. It was back in 2012. I just had so many things going, wrong in my life. And it was so heavy and so destructive to my experience of life that I was in full surrender. And I remember it's almost a feeling like a desperation of like, fine, I give up. Here, take it. Figure it out. I'm done. But in a deep, very meaningful way is what happened. And when I did that, I suddenly had a huge, very strong appreciation for just being alive. And I realized that being alive is such a tremendous gift that we overlook every day. Just being able to breathe and taste and see and touch reality. It's a precious gift. And when I fully realized how it really is a gift, I wasn't just saying it or thinking it, I was feeling the gratitude. I was feeling the gratitude for being alive, then the joy of being became a lot easier. Or more natural. And so if you're having a hard time understanding what is joy of being and feeling you're in these negative states of mind, you can at least trust that these forms of suffering that you're experiencing has a divine purpose. You're not just a victim of life. You're not a victim of reality. You can use this negative experiences to help you, to aid you in your awakening, by accepting that it's there and trusting that it has a purpose. And the purpose is to push you, or to almost inspire or motivate you to take this seriously. Take it seriously enough to invest your time and energy in studying it, and in studying yourself, and taking time to meditate and read books, and really go deeply into seeking the joy of being. And when you make it the top priority in your life, and you start to find little clues, and you start to find teachers and friends that can help point you in the right direction, the more and more you'll start to get closer to it. And it, in a sense, you can have these little moments of clarity where it clicks, but for the most part, as far as the life-changing part about it is, it's a lifelong practice. So you might get these little moments of, aha, I get it, but you still have to do the practice. The practice is where the magic comes in. It's continuously practicing and practicing. Bringing your attention into this moment, finding the joy of simply being alive, without any dependency on what you're doing. Just the fact that you are alive is where you can find your joy. And there are different ways to bring your attention out of your mind and into the joy of being. One very powerful one is just breathing. Just your breath. Inhaling and exhaling, noticing the inhale and the exhale. Another portal that Eckhart talks of is body awareness, where your attention is in your body. You feel your hands, your feet, your legs, your head. You feel the whole body. There are a lot of other practices as well, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions about different ones. But they're all basically centered with the same concept of bringing your attention into this moment through one of your senses, your 5 senses, or through a couple other portals. But they're all about bringing your attention here, which consequently is pulling your attention away from the story in your head, away from your ego, which is this story, which is the me, and it's everything about your history, about your past, about where you plan to be in the future, and who you are, and how people see you. It has your self-image in there, how you think everybody interprets you. It has your own self-image of how do you see yourself compared to the world. It has so much information in it, but none of it is you. It's all the mind. And when you bring your attention into this moment, you're consequently pulling it away from that. And when you're pulling your attention away from the mind and into this moment, this is going to dissolve. Because the only way all of this can exist is if you're feeding it with your attention. Believe it or not. It is actually your awareness, your attention, that fuels the existence of the ego, of the mind, of the story, of you. And so as you start to bring your attention here and find the joy in being right here, right now, you're consequently also dissolving all the illusion existing within you. And the thing I'll end on is, so if you're dissolving all of the story and the ego and the depression and negativity and everything that's arising within your illusionary self, your ego, because you're being here, then that points to a clue that finding joy in being is a silent experience. Meaning, when you're enjoying existing, you're not thinking about how much you enjoy it. You're not thinking about how life is getting so much better and blah 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 this and blah 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 that, because you're not thinking at all. When you really find a joy in being, There is no mental noise, no voice in your head talking, commenting on what you're experiencing anymore. There's no songs playing. There's no imaginary, fantasies of various stories that our minds play. It's a very still, a very quiet mental experience. So when you find joy in being, there's this sort of duality that occurs where your attention is here and now, and you feel inside very peaceful, very still, very content. And at the same time, you notice, oh wait, my mind is silent. Of course, that voice that's saying that is interrupting the silence. But as soon as you stop, saying my mind is silent, it's back to an emptiness. And the more you start to experience the silent mind, the more you start to realize how that mind that you were so identified with in your past, or that you may be so strongly identified as to who you are right now, is the very culprit that's creating all the negativity within you. It is the source of your depression, of your anxiety, of your suffering, is that voice in your head. And every time you feel negative or dark or in a dark place, it's guaranteed that that voice is leading you into that darkness. And so again, it's all about bringing your attention away from that voice in your head and into this moment where everything is fine. Right here, right now, I'm in my room, my dog is sleeping here. Everything is perfectly okay. And as I'm sure it is in your present moment right now, wherever you are watching this video, everything surrounding you right now is perfectly okay. And that's what we're just realizing is, oh, I don't have to figure everything out. I can trust life. I can trust that there's something beyond me that can be in control and has my best intention, involved, and it's going to look out for me. And all I have to do is keep quiet with him. So that's the joy of being. It's a big, big topic, and a very powerful practice once you start to taste the joy of being. So that concludes this question. If you have any more questions about it, or feel like you hasn't quite resonated yet, feel free to contact me. But if you really truly want to experience the joy of being, you've got to make the effort. I spent years putting effort into this practice before mastering it, like years and years. I think technically 2011, 2018. So 7 years I've been practicing this. Very very disciplined. I've been very disciplined in practicing this. This has been one of my top priorities in life for the last 7 years. So don't be discouraged when you get a glimpse of it, but then you go back, you fall back into ego, you fall back into thought and stuff. That's normal. It's just part of the cycle. But you got to keep trucking. You got to keep going. You got to be disciplined. You have to be, in a sense, you have to be sort of a warrior about this and make this a top priority in life, and trust that every time you try, you're that much closer. Even the smallest step forward is a huge step. So just keep practicing, making it your priority in life. Maybe even sitting down and saying, well, how much, I spend this amount of time playing games, I spend this amount of time socializing, I spend this amount of time on social media. What can I take from all this extraneous time? And instead of dedicating it to strengthening my ego, I could dedicate it to meditating and doing yoga and going within and studying myself and reading from spiritual teachers and watching spiritual videos that would aid in you finding your joy of being. Reprioritize how you're choosing to spend every second of your day and of your life, and you'll find that there's a lot of opportunity to practice that you're not necessarily taking advantage of yet. And that's what it comes down to. It's just practice, practice, practice. Nothing can be mastered instantly. Nothing. And let's end this video with gratitude. See if you can find some gratitude. Even if you didn't understand anything I just said, the fact that you're trying, the fact that you're asking such questions, or that you're disappointed that you're not experiencing at a certain level, is actually, it's a beautiful sign that you're on to something, right? And there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of opportunity for discovery and for growth. So find gratitude in yourself for even taking the time to try. Because it's all valuable and it's all beautiful. Much love, my friends.